Welcome to Yumi and All Things She. Our podcast is about all aspects of being a woman, from motherhood to careers, romantic relationships to family relationships and dynamics, and everything in between. It's a chance to learn, explore, and feel what's genuine and imagined as a woman in this world, along with multi-generational conversations that will stimulate your soul. So sit back, laugh, smile, and even cry a little along with us as we begin our journey together. Yumi and All Things She. Welcome to Yumi and All Things She. Deb here, and I am so super excited that you have joined me today for this episode of Yumi and All Things She. We are going to dive right into a topic that is pretty near and dear to my heart. It's 9 ingredients of mental toughness for women. Hopefully this will be the guide, the ultimate guide to becoming completely unstoppable. We got to start with some understanding and definitions, because to me, what unstoppable is to what you unstoppable is are all very, very different. But what, of course, Webster says is it's impossible to stop or prevent. And that's what I believe each and every one of us have the ability, once we are following our passion, is that we have the ability to become unstoppable. So let's dive right into these 9 ingredients. I am so stoked. The first ingredient that becoming unstoppable and really developing that mental toughness is resilience. And from a resilience standpoint, women with mental toughness are often able to just bounce back. That's what that resilience is we might get knocked down, but how quickly do we bounce back and get back up? We don't let that failure really define who we are. We use it as an opportunity to either learn and grow and then develop beyond that. So it doesn't necessarily define who we are. We use it as a springboard, and I'll share with you one of those things that I'll talk about. One of the things I read each and every day is that my obstacles become my springboards, which will help to build that resilience muscle so that I'm not down for long. Just watch out, because I'm coming back, and I'm coming back even stronger. So that's one of the 9 ingredients. Also, self-confidence for women. Women with mental toughness often believe in themselves and their abilities. And I know we've talked about several different topics so far that, kind of weigh us down from time to time. But the idea is what resides in the core of who we are, in our soul, in our being, is this self-confidence. And whether we're apprehensive at first because maybe we're learning something new, or we're not quite sure because maybe the dynamic of the people around us and we're being super sensitive to others that are involved in the situation, that might change how we present that self-confidence. But ultimately, at the core, in our inner being, we've got this core self-confidence. And if not, then here's an opportunity to work on that so that you can truly become unstoppable yourself. So that's ingredient number 2. Ingredient number 3 is optimism. And I just found someone in the Facebook group when I asked the question, so what do you use and tap into as a skill to be an unstoppable and build that mental toughness? And one person said, well, they rely on their optimism. And optimism, sometimes we've got to view the outside world differently than what maybe its reality is in order to overcome one of those obstacles that are preventing us from developing that mental toughness. I talked about, I think in a previous episode, that our mind doesn't know what we tell it. It doesn't know right and wrong. It just knows what we tell it. And then we create in our mind the formation of whether or not that's right and wrong or good and bad. And so from an optimism standpoint, it's not kind of the fake it till you make it. It's I see the world as I want to see it, and I'm going to choose to see it in its best light. I'm going to choose to see others in their best light at the most optimum performance that they can be, rather than the opposite, which is taking a look at people and seeing the worst in them. They'll never amount to anything. That's not the approach for any mental toughness whatsoever. So if we exude that energy out of us to give that positive, optimistic look and approach to everything and everybody, guess what we get back? We get just as much optimism from the world, and we get those happy surprises that show up. That's what helps us achieve those goals and drive that mental toughness to be even. And when I think about mental toughness, I was trying to decide what to really do on this episode. I thought about, first of all, I could wear some really tough looking clothes. I could put some of my biker gear on and, a leather vest and all that. But at the end of the day, the mental toughness is an inside job. It's not on the outside. So it doesn't matter what I wear, how I look, how I dress, the makeup I put on or don't put on. At the end of the day, mental toughness is my inside story. What do I tell myself? What do I live on a day-to-day basis? And so for me, that optimism is a huge tool that I use. And one of the links in the descriptions that I will leave for all of you in the podcast is what's referred to as the Optimist Creed. I have been reading the Optimist Creed since the first part of the year. And I can honestly tell you that that has changed not only what's happening on the inside, but it's changing everything for me on the outside. It's because I am changing the way I view others. And guess what's happening in the way I view my world? And what's happening is my world is changing too. So, sometimes when we're wanting change on the outside of things, we have to start with the inside. And so I'm sharing that Optimist Creed with you. I have actually for myself made a couple of tweaks to it, and I shared that also in the link. So be sure and drop down into the link and click that so that you can turn that into maybe a daily pattern or routine for you. And, I've even shared it with those along my path is that, we don't have to necessarily be this loud, boisterous outward appearance, that sometimes we can just have the right approach, that little bit of an optimistic view. We don't even have to share a word, put a smile on our face, and then all of a sudden that changes the entire dynamic of the situation that we're in. So that's the Optimist Creed. It's down below in the descriptions. You can find that. So another thing is that we've got discipline. And for me, discipline has not been something that's been difficult because growing up in a military family, I had discipline all around me. It was get up early, do the chores, do this. Everything was very structured, and I've quite honestly adapted pretty well to some sort of a structured life. As I've gotten older, I'm easing up on a lot of that stress and structure and learning a little bit more how to just go with the flow. And so I can have my structure as maybe an outward template, but then on the inside, it can be flexible and give me different thoughts and ideas and places that I can do and go. But that discipline is what gets me through the regiments of exercising. My discipline is what gets me through starting a book and reading it to its end, or completing a specific race or an objective or a goal. Those are all things that have propelled me forward because I put that discipline of a structure in, and I find a path in which in order to achieve those goals. So I just want to share one quick story. Growing up, I was intended to be the first person in my family to go straight from high school to college. That was something that my family of origin, I was birthed into, talked a lot. You're smart, you've got it going on, you can do all these things. You're going to be the first one to go from high school to college. And, I really embraced that. I had my college picked out. I was going to attend Baylor University. I love music. I loved singing at the time. Not so hot these days, but I enjoy it. And so I wanted to be part of their traveling evangelist singing group. They had attended the church year after year that I attended as a child and as a young teen. And so I desired for that to be the college I went to. I knew all about Baylor, and it was going to be the college of choice. Well, I had no idea how I was going to get there. And at that time, as a child, it didn't really matter because all I knew that I had this not only pressure to be the first one, but it was almost kind of a badge of honor. I could take my family into a whole new direction and do something maybe that no one else in my family had ever accomplished. And so to me, I kind of looked at it not only as a pressure, but I took that pressure and created a goal for myself. And so I just really, really hung on to that goal and made it part of my entire childhood, in my high school years. Well, I was somewhat athletic, and I'll say somewhat because, we all have a little bit of potential, and then once it's developed, we see really where we can go. Well, my junior year of high school, I was on the swimming team, and I was my high school's diving team. So no one else was on the diving team. And quite honestly, the importance of that is because there was no coach. So I kind of took on this endeavor, and I said, okay, I've got to teach. I've always loved to dive. I've done swimming, most of my life growing up in the summers. So I am going to take on this challenge and become a diver. I'd watched the Olympics, which had appeared in the city I was growing up in, and went and met, Luganis and a few other well-known swimmers. And that was pretty exciting to me. So I was in this gig full on. I was going to become the best diver possible. Well, I think what allowed me to actually be fairly good in diving was that I was able to visualize those dives. And even though I had never had anyone kind of technique or teach me, And believe me, back in those days, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have video recorders. So all I knew is that I had to feel my way through any of those different techniques, and where my toes pointed, where my hands in straight and all of that. And I progressively felt throughout the season that I was getting better and better. At the end of that junior year, I had a coach come up to me and encourage me to not only get their coaching, but we had conversations back and forth, and he was from a very reputable school in the area, had an excellent diving team, and so, encouraged me to possibly spend the summer coaching with them. And guess what? Then that could be my ticket to college. So I'm like, okay, this is it. But then my thoughts go, okay, I'm in Colorado. It's cold country. I've never heard of any diving or swimming scholarships, but you know what? Hey, that's okay. I can go through this, and maybe I'll be a phenomenon. Maybe it's just my gift. So I didn't have the financial wherewithal to do that myself. So guess what? I had to have that conversation with my parents. So that day came. I needed to talk to my mom and dad, please. And I was so super excited. It was the first time I really felt like someone had confidence in my abilities. I was ready to make my dreams a reality. So the day came, we sat down, we had this conversation. I was super excited. I was so thrilled. And at the end of the day, the reason I wasn't able to get coaching that summer was my parents couldn't afford it. Well, they still had I had two younger siblings at home. And you know what? It just wasn't what it was. And then the story came, well, I've never seen anyone in Colorado receive a diving scholarship or go to college off of swimming, Deb. So it's not probably very realistic that can happen. If you can imagine, the bubble burst. Well, conversation didn't go quite what I was hoping it would go like. And at that time in my life, as a 16, 17-year-old young, not even adult yet, but a young teenage person that's so vulnerable, I let that crush me. Well, my dreams of college disappeared. It went away because it was either go to college or move out. That was the ultimatum. And so for me, I was at this point of decision. Well, what do I do? So my senior year, I didn't swim and dive. I didn't go get a coach. I did not pursue college, and I didn't know how to. And so for the longest time, even in my adult years, I looked at my parents and I blamed them. I blamed them for stealing my dreams. But as we've talked about, as an adult, guess what? I've got to take personal responsibility. I didn't know how to be resilient. I didn't know how to be determined. I didn't know how to be disciplined. And yes, I was working. I was working a part-time job. I probably could have, had I really wanted to. If I look back, hindsight 2020, I probably could have afforded on my own to have paid for the coaching or found a way. I could have reached out to others, maybe in school, that were planning to go to college and start to circle with them, because honestly, the friends I hung out with, we didn't talk about college. And at that point, we were starting to all go our separate ways. The end of junior year, obviously you're coming into the end of your high school career. I was working part-time. I was going to school part-time just to get the last ounce of credits I needed to move on with my life. And my focus, quite honestly, at that point shifted and changed, and it was no longer about being the first one in my family to go to college, because the reality was I probably wasn't going to make that happen. So I blamed them for a lot of years, and the moral of the story is take personal responsibility. What I realize today is that they did the best they could with what they had. They didn't have parents that encouraged them to go to college. They didn't go to college. They didn't know what to do. And all they knew is that I was number 2 of 4 of their children. And how do they help me bridge that gap to achieve that goal? And I didn't press it either. So, I have to take so much responsibility about what I chose for my life at that moment. So instead of being this first, guess what? Now I'm the first to move out 6 weeks after high school, live on my own, and, all sorts of other stuff. But that's not a claim to fame. It was what I needed to do to find my own independence. But the moral of the story is first of all, taking personal responsibility. And so many times, even in our world as a woman, it takes us years to gather that strength to become unstoppable, to build that mental toughness. Because for so many years in our adult life, we look back at our past and we blame everyone else for all of the things that we've experienced. And so, That's why I thought it was really important to talk about this mental toughness. Well, today I can say, you know what? I am not letting anyone stop me. Just ask my husband. Poor guy. He lives with a lot of that determination because I'm just not going to become the victim. I'm not going to allow myself to do that. It just isn't going to happen. I had no idea at the time that there were grants or other types of scholarships, that I could really, my grades had fallen in that year. And so if I just kind of hit the grindstone again and did what I knew, studied, prepared, maybe there could be some other form of scholarship. Didn't have to be all about athletics. But I'll take personal responsibility where it needs to be taken. And you know what? I believe at this point I'm a better person for it, because I could have gone to college in all of these years as an adult, which I did. I went back, started to take a few classes, never accomplished the objective of a degree. But that wasn't my objective to begin with. It was all about becoming the first in my family. So it was about that accomplishment. It was about the acceptance of my parents to do something that they thought I could do and achieve it. So as we as adults become more aware of our belief systems, developing who we want to become, who we are going to become as an adult, we get the option now to make those choices. I love music. I still love music. I didn't go to Baylor University. It is what it is. However, my daughter, and we never put this pressure on her, but my daughter was the first in our family and all of our family to go from high school to college, and she did such an amazing job of funding that herself. So kudos to Nix. She's an amazing woman, an amazing mother, and she achieved the objective of the family. So hoorah to her. Moving on to really dig into the rest of, so hopefully that story can enlighten and share a little bit of my background and help you take personal responsibility for some of the things that maybe we think someone else caused us to have happen in life. Along with that, the next ingredient, though, that we need to focus on is that determination. If I just had an ounce of the determination I have today at the age of 16, who knows what I could have what could have accomplished in my life if I had chosen to at that time. So women with mental toughness are determined to succeed, whatever that word success means to you, whether it's freedom to travel, maybe it's time freedom to do whatever you want to do, maybe it's financial freedom, maybe you've always wanted to climb this corporate ladder and you're there. Just determine what your success is and then go for it with reckless abandon in order to make it happen. So put those goals in place. Also, another ingredient for us as women to really build that mental toughness is resilience. And that resilience is the ability to handle stress. What do we do to deal with stress? For, the last, I don't know how many years, my level of stress that I dealt with was all about running. And now, at a little bit older time in my life, it's a little bit about walking. So, it's just shifted and changed. My younger years, I was in martial arts. I did a lot of martial arts training. So find something that helps you handle that stress in your life so that you can maintain the resilience, which is hopefully going to help you with that bouncing back. Also, it clears our mind. I think when we have a way to deal with the stress, it allows us the opportunity to clear our mind, to look at things maybe in a different perspective. And it might be talking to, a pastor or a friend or someone that you can bounce those ideas off of. And sometimes they'll see that outside perspective that we're just too close to see. Another aspect, kind of getting on a touchy-feely side, would be empathy. And women with mental toughness oftentimes have the ability to be empathetic with others. We're not sympathetic. We're not jumping in that pool of emotional mud with someone else. We can understand. We're willing to help. We appreciate their perspective and they appreciate ours. So it's a different level of caring for others and building strong relationships that will help us to collaborate effectively if we can just turn on that empathetic emotion from time to time, rather than thinking we've got to be mental toughness and maybe not personality toughness. It doesn't mean that we have to be uncaring and unkind in the things that we do. Another aspect, and I believe that we're getting close to the end of our 9 ingredients, would be communication. So women with mental toughness have learned how to effectively communicate. We're able to communicate clearly and concisely, express our thoughts. That's easy for me to say, and ideas, and then share those with others. And I know I have to watch sometimes because I tend to get really excited quick and easy. So I have to sometimes, depending upon who I'm around, in that communication level, I have to bring it down a notch, or let my enthusiasm build as we talk. So I know enough about how I am that I need to sometimes adapt and adjust in that communication style for someone else. But there also means that we have to be a good listener. When someone needs an ear, when someone needs a hug, when someone needs us to be there, that can do nothing but help build the friendship and the rapport even more. Also, this is number 9, and this is one of my favorites because I love to talk about leadership. Women with mental toughness are natural leaders. Natural leadership doesn't necessarily mean that we're strong and overbearing personality. What it means is we have the ability to motivate and inspire and encourage others to achieve not only what they're looking for, their objective goals, but they look at us as someone that they can follow. And that's what that leadership is all about. There's 5 different levels of leadership. I could go on and on about leadership. Just because I spent quite a bit of time, I'm a John Maxwell certified leadership coach and speaker. And so leadership is something that I'm very passionate about in every aspect of my life, whether it's personal or career. You can be a great leader for your family. You can be a great leader for your children. You can be a great leader in whatever service organization maybe that you offer your time or offer yourself for. But helping to make decisions, help with taking action, and incorporating responsibility into that. Those are the things that leaders really carry with them that others look to. So to wrap this session up, talking about the 9 ingredients, we're going to take 3 of those ingredients and we're going to build 3 tips around each of them. And ideally what this was all about is to give you a place to start. So the first thing is a self-confidence. Without self-confidence, guess what? We are up a creek without a paddle. And one way to begin to build some self-confidence, if whatever life has thrown you recently has shaken you up a bit, we can start by those small challenges for ourselves. We've talked about over the last couple of episodes, those small baby steps that lead to bigger accomplishments. Well, that's absolutely true. So taking one small step just to stretch beyond our comfort zone and then try something new. It doesn't have to be huge. It might be getting out for a simple walk. It might be going to the mall and just walking around. It might be taking a small bite out for dinner. Whatever the case is, whatever is a step to stretch for you. It might be joining a meetup group. It might be joining a group or a church or something that you've wanted to for a long time. You just haven't had the courage, but just one small step. That's all that it takes to begin to build that self-confidence. And then set those small achievable goals. I know that, if you talk to anybody in goal setting, it's like there's these big, hairy, audacious goals. Well, that's great, but that sometimes can be overwhelming for someone that's struggling with confidence. So to get small, achievable goals, let's get back to this little sense of reality. It might be as easy as, well, you know what, I need to replace a ceiling fan in one of the rooms in my house. That's a small, achievable goal. How am I going to get there? I'm going to start by shopping and looking for one. And then when I find the one, then I'm going to have to purchase it. Those are small accomplishments. It'll get you to the end result of replacing that ceiling fan eventually. So just a matter of taking those small steps. And the third tip for this particular self-confidence category is to celebrate your successes. We are our own worst critic. I know I hear that from everybody all the time. I'm my worst critic. I'm so harsh on myself. And that's true. If you understand that, then be kind to yourself too. You can be harsh, but be gentle, be loving, be caring, be kind. And when you do something well, just take that moment to celebrate. I ate healthy today. I ate fruit 3 times a day today. Whatever it is, the smallest it possibly is, celebrate that. The next focus is going to be that optimism. We got to make sure that we keep that optimistic approach. And that's why I put that optimism creed down in the comments for you. So be sure and check it out. It might just change your life significantly because what we focus on in a positive way is what we will bring into our life. So when things go wrong, One thing we can do is to try and see the good in it. What can I learn from that not so good lesson? Or that didn't go quite what I wanted it to be. What can I glean from that to do differently next time? This is going to help us stay positive. Even when things get tough, rather than sitting in that muck, let's just try and find the positive and work our way out of it as quickly as possible, which will help build that resilience as well. So we're going to practice gratitude. We talked about that too. How many of you are doing your gratitudes every night before you go to bed? I know I'm 3 to 5. Lay in bed, go through my mind. What was the day like? I'm grateful for at least 3 to 5 things, if not a whole lot more. So take some time to write in that gratitude journal. We've talked a lot about that, but it helps us stay focused on the positive aspects. Maybe it's about, when you read in the morning or whatever your morning ritual or routine is putting some positivity in there. What 3 things can I hope for that will be positive today? So build a gratitude list before the day. It's an excellent way to begin the day. And then surround yourself with positive people. The unfortunate part that we believe and I think our Western society is that because we're family, we've got to be close. We've got to be friends. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Some of the most positive people in my life are not my family members. They can be the most critical in many regards. And so just surround yourself with those that are helping to propel you forward and keeping you positive, no matter who that is. So it could be a coworker, it could be a friend or a next door neighbor, whoever it is. Surround yourself with those positive people and positive women, which is what I'm hoping that this group can be for one another too. So circle around here, talk to us, share with us, and we'll be in this journey together. And then the third we want to talk about is discipline. I mentioned setting goals and planning and preparing. That's been something that just comes natural to me, probably because I was raised in a military family. But when you know what you want to achieve, it's much easier if you have a roadmap. So setting those goals can be one thing, and then just outlining or mapping out those small steps that are going to get you there. And I've done that every time I've had a really big goal that I wanted to achieve. And then we've got to see that vision in our mind's eye. We have to be able to envision what the outcome will look like. We've got to change our mental pictures of maybe the difficulty it's going to take to get there and bask in the glory of it being done. And so a lot of times we can do is just change that mental image by a couple of different ways. Just kind of came to me. I'm going to throw these out there. You could do a vision board. You could do a vision or mind map. You can write that out. You can write them. One technique is someone actually uses their mirror in their bathroom and writes those objectives to help change their mindset, help change their thinking process. So that is one way to do it. And then finally, it's all about consistent. It's that consistency that will help to form that discipline. And yes, it gets routine and it gets mundane. And then what we can do is find a little bit of something to change it up. But the ultimate goal is that we're creating this consistency in order to achieve those positive aspects of discipline that we're looking for. So my challenge for you today is, now that we've started with 3 of the 9 ingredients to build your mental toughness, is that you will take those others and begin to expand on those in order to build your own personal momentum to create the mental toughness that you're looking for. What I've learned about more lately is that the body is stuck or are addicted to the patterns of the past. That's what our body knows. We get up and we do this routine behavior. Maybe you get up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you read your Facebook posts from overnight, you maybe read email, maybe whatever your routine is. That's the body that is stuck in that addicted pattern of the past. That's what we've been doing for however long you've been doing it, which is why it's incredibly difficult to change that pattern, to change that habit, and why when we start, it seems like many times we'll take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, is because that body is used to that old addicted pattern. What we need to do for the future, and only in creating new habits, is we got to get that body out of that addicted emotional state. And the frequency of those patterns in our life, we've got to interrupt them in order to create new thoughts, which will then tell our bodies, because our thoughts will lead to actions, then that tells our body, now you need to do this. This is what you have to do a little bit different. So if you haven't realized it though, our thoughts are the language of our brain and our feelings are the language of our body. So we've got to believe it and not our body in order to get through the mind friction sometimes that we feel in order to turn those patterns around. We've got to get get down to the core of it all, which is that body, that reactive, that behavioral action that creates that addictive cycle of over and over and over again. Our body understands that that's the way it works. It doesn't realize that what our mind needs to do is to shift that thinking in order to change our actions. So I'm going to let you sit with that for just a little bit. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that in a future episode. It is something that I've just really enjoyed learning a lot more about, is changing those paradigms. It's easy to say habit changes in 21 days. That's easy to say. It's harder to do. I know that. And it's because that body, the more we learn about really the mechanisms in our makeup as a human being, then we can move forward. But I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of 9 Ingredients for Mental Toughness for Women. And I hope that this will become your ultimate guide to become unstoppable, because I know that you are. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And we have so much more to talk about. Next episode, we are actually going to discuss low self-esteem and how to rejuvenate that and pull yourself out of that place of low self-esteem so that you can become unstoppable. And until then, we'll see you on the very next episode.